Happy birthday! If you're joining me today, it's because you have the Narwhale Birthday Box, so happy birthday to you. Today I'll be walking you through a narwhal painting, so let's get started. You all have a white piece of paper with a piece of film on it. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and you're going to trace a pencil line right along the film, the edge of the film, so that we know how big our frame is and where we need to keep our drawing. You're then going to flip the film up, and we're going to start in the lower third of our drawing of our space because we want to put the water here and the narwhal up here. And if you bring your line up too high, then you won't have very much room for your narwhal. So I like to start somewhere about here. You can see I'm about this high up from my bottom. And I'm going to just do some swoops like this. And then inside I like to put a few waves, a few extra little curves. We'll be using this shape, this curve, a lot through this drawing. Now we'll get started on the narwhal, and this is the main event of the painting. So we're going to start here, and we're just going to draw and scoop around like that. So we'll just do a shape like that, like the narwhal's coming out of the water. We'll put a little fin on our narwhal, and then we're going to put the narwhal horn. I'm not going to come too high up with my horn because I know that there's a bit of a border that is going to come off when I put my painting in the frame. So I'm going to leave some edges to help not cut off my painting. Now, we're going to do, this narwhal is sort of a nighttime narwhal. And if you've ever heard of the artist Van Gogh, he drew a lot of night scenes with really cool stars. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to put some stars and a moon. So our moon is going to look like it's behind our narwhal, and we're just going to go like this and make sort of a curved line up to the narwhal horn. Then we're going to jump over, and we're going to continue that curve just like that. It's like a half circle. Then we're going to come to the tip and work our way back up, making sure we jump right over that narwhal horn. Now these stars, these are my favorite stars, and they're just little swirls. And these little swirls really remind me of Van Gogh and his night scenes. And you want to kind of space them out. You don't want them too close together. You want the things that you draw to stand out and not be too crowded. So I think that looks really good. We need some detail on our narwhal, and we're going to give our narwhal a little smile, and we're also going to add an eye, and I call this eye a sleepy eye, or the narwhal looks really content with this eye, really happy. So it's another little curve, and then we're just going to put some eyelashes on. Now, if you want, you can erase the line from the horn to the body and the fin to the body. You don't have to, but you might want it so that it looks a little more seamless. Now that we have our painting, or our drawing drawn, we're going to take the film and we're going to lay it back over. Now you'll notice that some of the drawing is covered up by the tape. Actually, I'm just going to go like this because of the eraser marks. It's covered up by the tape, and that's okay. We'll peel it up when we need to. So the next step is to then take your marker. you're going to use the tip of your marker and rather than the side, because you have more control with the tip. And all you're going to do is you're going to trace all of these pencil lines. So the reason that I had you draw on paper first is because once you draw this marker onto this film, you can't really erase it. And I know that sometimes people like to erase, they want to get it just right. Don't be too hard on yourself, don't be too picky. But I do know that sometimes you'll want to make some changes, and that's okay. But if you do it on the paper first, then if you have your eraser marks and things like that, then it's not going to interfere with the painting. Now, when I'm tracing, if I accidentally draw my line in here or in here, it's okay. It's still going to look awesome. Just take your time. The nice thing about these videos is that if you need a little more time, you can pause it. I've given you some coloring sheets if you finish before someone else and you need something to do while you're waiting. Now, this part that's covered under the tape, I'm just going to peel this up and I'm going to make my lines. And I'm going to do some across here. Okay, so now the most important thing, this is the side that we do not want to paint on now, because when you put paint over that, it's going to smear. So what you want to do is you want to lift your tabs up and you want to, oh, and I had a little star hiding under there. Let me just go like that. So you want to lift your tabs up and then you want to turn this over so that you're painting on the other side. And I'm also going to turn my piece of paper over so that I can see what I'm doing and it will just slide around. Okay, so you've got a paintbrush, it's small, it's got flat bristles, and what you're going to do is you're going to, you should also have a little rag, a little art rag. This is nice for wiping color off and when you're going from color to color instead of using a whole bunch of different brushes. And I also have a cup of water that can help me get my paint off, and then I can wipe it off like this. And then just make sure that it's not too wet, because then your colors, these are acrylic, they'll become more like a watercolor if you have too much water on your brush. Okay, so I like to start with the lighter colors first. I'm going to start with my stars, and I'm just gonna paint over top of them like this. I don't even have to get it super perfect or within the lines, because when I turn it over, and I'll show you, it really pops no matter how far outside of that black line you get or how far inside. So this is meant for you to not be too hard on yourself, to have fun with it. There's going to be a little bit of layering. So I'm just going to go and get into all of my stars. Right here, and right here, right here. And I also want to use this yellow to get inside of my moon. And don't worry if you get a little bit outside of your moon, because the black line helps define each section. So I'll turn it over for you. You don't want to turn yours over a whole bunch because it can get messy, but I'll just turn it over to show you, just to reassure you that it still looks good. I even got outside a bit. That's not even going to be an issue once I get my blue on there. Okay, so now what I want to do is I am going to take my brush and I want to clean it, dip it in the water, kind of rub that yellow off. And I'm going to take my damp cloth. It'll help me get anything else off, and then it's nice and clean. And then I'm going to, you have a nice paint tray. I'm just using a plastic lid, and these work really great. And also you're reusing something that you might otherwise recycle or put in the garbage. So that's always good. What I'm gonna do is I have a dark blue, but I wanna save that for my sky. And for my water, I want it a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna take some white and some blue, and I'm just gonna kind of mix it together until I get the color I like. It's still a little dark for me. And you can tell how it's going to contrast from the water to the sky because you've got the darker blue right beside. Okay, I like that. I'm going to use, it's kind of a creamy light blue. So now that I have the blue that I like, I'm going to come down to my water and I'm going to paint all inside here. And remember, we're not being too picky on how, if we get up over the line a bit, that's okay. If some of you have your paper moving around too much for you, you can use your tape and tape it down. You'll just have to lift it to get into certain areas. And you'll notice there's some smearing here, and that's okay. That looks like it. All these little imperfections, when I'm doing art with my kids here or when I'm at school teaching, all those imperfections make your art interesting. Really perfectly done art never looks as good as art that's got things that seem like, oh, is that supposed to be there? Like the plastic is kind of showing through here, but that looks like waves. So I really like when that kind of stuff happens. So let's turn it over and take a look. And you can see it's kind of smeared, and so really don't get too hard on yourselves on any of those little imperfections. That's what makes it look interesting. So now that we have that, I'm going to wash my brush again. This water is going to get turned to a really interesting color by the end. And then I'm going to give it a nice wipe with my damp cloth. You can use paper towel, you can use baby wipes, anything that is just slightly wet to get your brush clean. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the blue that I have, this dark blue. It's a really rich blue. I love it. When you put it on the sky, it looks like a nighttime sky. And so what I'm doing is I'm just going around my stars. And remember, we talked about what happens when the plastic kind of shows through, and it just makes it more interesting, gives it a more interesting look. You're going to come up along beside your narwhal because you're going to paint that something else. You're going to kind of trace around it and paint around those stars. If you let the stars dry completely, you can paint right over top of them. Mine are already sort of drying, which is nice because if you go over top, it's not going to show on the other side. So I'm just gonna come around here. I'm working a little bit faster than you would because time-wise, I know that you can pause your video and for those of you that are working faster, I don't want you waiting for me. But remember, if I'm going too fast for you, just ask the adult to press pause. So we'll just come up into these corners. And right around the horn and the moon. And make a little line all the way down. And we'll go like this. And make sure that you don't let your brush get too dry. You don't want it too wet and you don't want it too dry. I guess that sounds a little picky, but it's the right in the middle that you get the best results, because when your brush is too dry, it doesn't slide the paint around as nicely. And when it's too wet, you don't get as deep of a color. So now I'm going to come right around here, and this piece of paper acts as a nice placemat, even though you should have a tablecloth on your table, because I am going to show you how you can use the other side of this, of your drawing, to also create a painting with the tools that you have. So I'm just going to come around here and come around here. And you can see that I've come kind of over into my water. That's okay. I'll show you what that looks like. And if you get paint on your fingers and you don't like that, that's what this little rag is also nice for. And if you have any of these like really gloopy spots, kind of smooth them out, because especially for a birthday party, you want to make sure that your painting has enough time to dry. So your painting will be drying while you have, well, hopefully you're having cake and opening presents, and that'll give you a nice amount of time to let your painting dry. But the more gloopy or gloppy your paint is, then the longer it'll take to dry. So I like that. I'm just checking now for any little spots that I missed, and I see one right here. And sometimes in these little spots you can just dab around, and that's really nice too, because I see, oh, here's another one. And I'm gonna get right around. Okay, and right here. Now let's see if my sky looks windy and like it's at night. I always think of the sea as just moving and the sky moving. So hopefully I've got some of that in my painting. You don't need to turn yours over. I'm just gonna do it to show you what it's starting to look like. So you can see how nice that blue contrasts with the yellow, and how there's like some waves in the sky, which is really cool. Now right here, if you think that's not enough paint, then you can always add a bit more. But I'm not gonna add too much more because I actually really like that definition. Okay, so I'll turn it back this way so that it looks like yours. I'm gonna wash my brush and use my little rag to clean it off. You have a few different colors that you can play around with. I've used pink, I've used yellow, I've used purple, and you have all of those colors. I also put a teal in, and today, since I haven't made my narwhal teal before, I'm going to use teal today and just see how that contrasts. And see, the nice thing is I can paint right over top of that eye, but when I turn it over, my eye is going to still be there. And I'm gonna go like this. I think I'm gonna leave my narwhal horn white, so I'm actually gonna paint it white, but I'll do this first. I'll just work right along. And I'm not gonna worry if it smears too much on the plastic. There we go. I'm gonna smooth out those glops. Oops, and I got a little bit of blue in there, but that'll happen, that's okay. Move it out. If that happens and it's still on your brush, you can just wash your brush in between, even if you're using the same color, and then kind of smooth it out. That teal is so pretty. Wow, I like that. But if you choose pink or purple, or you want to make the purple lighter by mixing it with the white, that'll look really good too. So now I'm going to wipe my brush off, and the last color that I'm going to add is going to be white. And I'm just going to dab, because remember how I told you when you got those tiny spaces to get to, you can dab it. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over and see if there's any spots that I really want to kind of touch up. So if I turn it over, ooh, that teal really pops. I love this. I like it. I'm going to leave it just as it is. I got some blue because I turned my paper over, but that's okay. So I'm going to let this dry, and you can do the same with yours. And if you want to see how to turn this into a painting, what you're going to do is you're going to take the crayons that are in your package, and essentially you're doing the same thing. You're going to do some outlining. So I'm going to outline my narwhal in black. I really want the narwhal to pop. A lot of times I'll outline everything in black, but with this one, with the way the stars are, I'm not going to do that. But I am going to outline the eye and the mouth. And then I'm going to take my yellow crayon and I'm going to do some definition like this. And I'm just doing little circles around it where I did my swirls. I'm going to do it over here and over here. Oops. And I'm also going to color in my moon. And don't worry if some black smudges in. I love it when that happens because it looks like a real painting. When you get some of those imperfections that really aren't imperfections. And then I'm going to take my blue, and this is the blue I had. You'll have some sort of blue in your crayons. And I'm going to outline my water, get my little waves like that, and then I'm going to paint. But what I'm going to do with the paint now, because you have acrylic paint, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some water to it. So you have this nice dish and you could have some water in here. You could even put a little bit of blue paint, add water to it and mix together and just use it like that. There's lots of different ways that you can make your acrylic paint into sort of a watercolor. So I'm gonna get my brush wet and I'm gonna add water. Oh, whoops. Okay, well, you know what? That might happen while you're doing this too. So I'm just gonna keep going because I just am. What I wanted to show you was this and this and how I'm adding water to it. And you'll notice the paper that I'm using is not the good paper you have. If you spill water on your watercolor paper, it's not going to matter because it actually is made for water. But because we're almost to the end of the video, I'm just going to carry on. So you know what, I probably don't even need to add water to my paint, but you can see how less water makes it like it was on the film. But if you get it runny like this, it actually, the crayon resists the paint and it will pop through. Now, it's gonna show up better here because I've kind of made a little boo-boo, but this is an extra and I want you to know how to do it. So you can see on this side, it's way less water. And so the crayon doesn't pop as much, but over here, you can see the crayon popping through. Now let's try that on the sky. I'm gonna start over here so that you can get a really good look. I'm gonna take, and I've just done a contrast. I've done the dark blue on the bottom and the light blue on top, just to give you an idea of the difference. So let's go like this. I'm just adding water to my blue, and you can see it's nice and runny. And then I'm going to go over top of my stars. And you can just see how they're peeping through. And the harder you press, the more it will resist. And I'm just gonna go like this, add a little bit more paint, and then dip that into here. And it's kind of fun to get to try different things without having to buy a whole bunch of different art supplies. Acrylic paints are so nice because they're thick. They stick onto wood and plastic and paper and canvas. But watercolors are really fun too. They're one of my favorite to work with because you can take the watercolor and use it with pastels or crayons, which is really fun. And you can see this water has really turned blue. It's almost a watercolor in itself, so I barely need to really get into the paint, but I will, because my paper is not the good paper like yours. And it really doesn't hold the water as well, but that's okay. This is just to kind of give you an extra idea. And I'll get over here. Now, hopefully you don't spill your water, but if you do, try to power through. Try to see if you can make it work. And I think that this is still coming along really nicely, and I'm excited to try a color on the narwhal that is already wet. So you can see the color contrast. I love both. This sort of seems a little bit more in the day, and the other one seems nighttime. And I'm not gonna go all the way through because it's so wet that I don't want it to tear through, but you can kind of get an idea of what the painting will look like on there. Now I'm going to take my pink, I think, and I'm going to just paint over top. Now I'm not adding water on this one because it's so wet. I might add a little bit, but that's where you might want to get a little bit of clean water. But I'm just gonna kind of see. I'm just trying to make this work on the wet. If you didn't drop your water all over yours, you're going to have a much nicer painting. I'm just gonna give that a little wipe. And then I'll add a little water, which is probably gonna add some blue, yep. But I want the eyeball to pop out, and so that's why you want it watery when you're going over top of your crayon. And then I'm gonna try something. I wanna try a teal horn just to try something different. Okay, that is cute. That looks really cute and nice soft pink. If you have some drips like that, you can take paper towel and kind of lift it. I'm gonna take the teal. I'm just gonna go right in here. And there we go. And so you can always use your sketch to make a painting as well. You only have one, frame, so you'll have to decide which one you want to put in the frame. I'm going to show you, here's my frame, and since I spilt water all over my painting, I can't show you that right now, but you're going to just, there's little stickers on the back, and you're going to attach them once it's dry, and then your beautiful narwhal painting will be inside of your frame. I have another plasticky one that I did before, and I can show you that too. So really, really cute. So I hope you had fun with this tutorial. I hope you don't mind that I spilt the water, and I hope you have a great rest of your birthday. Bye.